something I wanted to talk about, and it actually started from this. Actually started from this video right here that I seen. Oh, come on. We know about the Somalis. We brought that out. And I don't know about this charity, but a lot of these charities just be stealing people's money. Yeah. But I would watch this debate on a couple days ago, and it's actually from 8 days ago. All right. I watched it. It was only maybe Wednesday or something like that, maybe Thursday. But anyway, you have this guy over here on the left. He's the devil. All right, and you got Chank over here on the right. He's also the devil, but he's a liberal devil, right? So he's going to give you more truth than this guy over here. Which, ironically, a liberal devil will hide their true feelings on a subject just so they can appear to be right. Whereas these devils over here are more honest in how they don't care and how they just want to kill people. And they, he's not going that far, but he basically is. He's in support of what the state of Israel is doing to Gaza because he views all the Palestinians as, terrorists. He's very hateful and racist in that way. And you got Chank over here who is appearing or trying to appear more compassionate to both sides. But I was watching this, and I want to see if y'all pick up on what he's about to say here.
Yeah, so you asked if he cared about 8,000 dead babies, and his answer was no. Queen Rania bothers me, so a complete non-answer, because he doesn't care. He doesn't think the Palestinians' lives are worth anything. He just called them all terrorists.
It's nice you can put that
and this is what they always do.
There you go.
So hold on, I let you talk for a long time, so why don't you shut up for a second?
That's not what I wanted to get into. I just thought that was pretty funny. Because this guy over here on the left, he's always interrupting anything that Chank says, and Chank is over here appealing to emotions, or rather appealing to emotions. So neither one is a great debate tactic, but I'm not here for the tactics. It's something that Chank says in this rant that he's about to go on that I want to touch on.
So we've got all of these dead babies. We've got all of these dead babies that this monster doesn't care about. He says keep bombing them. A former intelligence officer said in the Israeli press they're using AI in a program called The Gospel, where he said it's basically a mass assassination factory. And we could all see it with our own eyes. And you can do all the propaganda you want.
Notice how the Israeli attack system, the Israeli attack AI is named the Gospel. You'll see that a lot with these, with the state of Israel, with these Jewish people that run the state of Israel, that they will use names that sound holy, names that sound righteous. They might even trick you into thinking they're righteous in how they're doing things. That's the whole Jedi mind trick that they like playing. All right.
No one believes your nonsense. We see all the dead women. We see all the dead children. Now Israel has killed 20 times the number of civilians that Hamas killed. So would I want Hamas in charge of Israel? Never, never. I don't trust them, and I don't believe that they would be benign. So all of this propaganda about, people don't mind Hamas. No, we mind Hamas. We terribly what happened on October 7th. And I've now shown you different Israelis that have said that it's a problem. And I want peace and security for both Israel and Palestine. And this does not get Israel any peace or security. But when you ask the other side, do you mind tens of thousands of civilians that have been murdered, incinerated alive, body parts picked out of rubble, little babies killed over and over again in what is even the Israeli prime minister is referring to as AMALEK, meaning an extermination of the Palestinian people. And I must clarify the difference between a genocide and a Holocaust.
Okay, so we'll touch on what he's saying. We'll continue playing the clip until he's done this right here. But you notice how he's appealing to emotion. That's certainly what he's doing. But he's not wrong. It's certainly called for. This appeal to emotion that he's doing. because he's not saying anything wrong. They are killing women. They are killing children at more. They killed more women and children than they have Hamas. That's just a fact. The state of Israel. Excuse me, something in my throat. But the state of Israel has just carpet bombed the region of Gaza. That's just a fact. And plenty of dead women, plenty of dead children. Estimates are upwards of 20,000 civilians that they've killed, right? That's not including Hamas, all right?
A genocide is when you target a specific people and kill a lot of civilians. Srebrenica, where 6,000 people were killed, was considered a genocide. So it doesn't mean you try to murder every single person in that
Jake, let me ask you.
That is a Holocaust.
Jake, let me reply. Jake, one second. Before I go to Douglas, Jake, one question. You want to get rid of Hamas too, as does Douglas, as do I. If you don't do it the way that Israel is currently doing it, given that they live amongst the population, how else do you do it?
Yeah, there's an excellent way to do it.
All right, so I don't necessarily want to get into his spiel about a two-stage solution. That would never work, and they even address that on here. But something that we just breezed right past, and I think there's actually an earlier clip when he goes into how Benjamin Netanyahu called Hamas AMALEK. All right? Benjamin Netanyahu said, we got to exterminate Amalek. That's what our Bible says to do. And I heard that in this, not only in this clip, I think it was actually a piece before where he actually dove into that a little more. But in this, you heard him briefly say, they said they want to kill Amalek, which is a genocide, right? Which is an extermination. All right, so we can get out of this. I don't necessarily want to stay here. But I did a little bit of research off the back of that, because that video is more recent than this NPR article right here. But we're going to get into this and just talk about what Netanyahu said. Because the press was not really covering this when it happened. When he said these things, the press was not really pushing it the way that they were pushing everything else that was happening over there. It says Netanyahu's references to violent biblical passages raise alarm amongst critics. All right. So the topic here: how should the world interpret Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent allusions to the Hebrew Bible when discussing his country's war on Hamas? And this is interesting. Like I said, it's a little out of date, but it's over a month old now, and so much more has happened. So many more deaths have happened off the back of this. But I'm going to get into this anyway, just for the quotes of Bibi Netanyahu. This is Layla Fidel, the host. She said, the October 7th attack by Hamas on Israel has many questioning the leadership of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Over the weekend, Israeli protesters gathered outside his home demanding he resign because Netanyahu has always been hard, always been strict, always been rough on people who are not Jewish, especially the Palestinians that they're kicking out of the state of Israel and forcing into Gaza. All right? He's always been strict on them. And so now you have this retaliation by Hamas on October 7th, and that caused the people to say, wait a minute, I thought you were protecting us, Benjamin Netanyahu. Why is it that you let this happen? How is it that you let this happen? Right? So they wanted him to resign. Fidel, this is the host. They're asking how this government didn't know what was going on in the blockaded Palestinian enclave of Gaza, where Hamas rules and Israel and Egypt control the borders. How did they not know what was going on? How did they not know that Hamas was planning an attack? All right. Why it took the military hours to rescue civilians as gunmen overran their towns, killing more than 1,400 people, according to the Israeli government. Yeah, the Israeli government said that Hamas killed 1,400 people on October 7th. Whereas, if you actually look into it, Hamas was killing a lot of people, but then the state of Israel showed up with helicopters and was just mowing people down. They didn't care if there was Israeli citizens or Hamas. They were just mowing people down. The same way that they did in Gaza. they really don't even care about their own Jewish people. They just want to wipe out these Palestinians. All right? According to the Israeli government. So we know that that number is inflated just based upon how not all the casualties were caused by Hamas on that day. And taking more than 240 hostages. That's the backdrop of Israel's response in Gaza, where Palestinian health officials say Israeli bombardments and ground operations have killed upward of 10,000 people. And we know now that it's over 20,000. All right? Upward of 10,000 people and induced a man-made humanitarian crisis. Netanyahu has dismissed calls for a pause in hostilities from much of the international community unless it means the unconditional return of the captives. And since then, we have had a ceasefire that lasted a few days, and then they started back again. All right? The Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire or calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, which that's not what that means, but of course that's how he used it. Fidel and his, or rather the host, and his public statements have raised alarm among some critics. He's twice referenced violent passages in the Bible to justify Israel's devastating response, including this one, through the interpreter. You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our Holy Bible. All right? So, it said, remember what Amalek has done to you. All right? That's the quote that he's referencing. Keep that in mind. And this is the host. Speaking Hebrew, he's comparing Hamas to the nation Amalek in a passage from the book of Samuel. That's actually not what he's referencing, though that is a good passage, and we'll get that just to prove that. That passage says to smite the Amalekites after the nation launched a vicious surprise attack on the Jewish people. Modi Bari is a professor of religion at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke. And Modi Bari, the biblical commandment is to completely destroy all of Amalek. And when I'm talking about completely destroy, we're talking about killing each and every one of them, including babies, including their property, including the animals, everything. Already, Palestinians in Gaza and human rights groups accuse Israel of indiscriminate attacks that cause mass civilian casualties. Israel's army maintains it does not deliberately target civilians, that the deaths are a byproduct of Hamas entrenched in densely packed areas inside the Gaza Strip. They said, look, we don't mean to kill all these innocent people. It just happened. You know, we were trying to get Hamas, but it just so happened that we bombed the whole building. Instead of sending in a squad to take out the 1 or 2 Hamas people that were there, we just decided to bomb the entire hospital. That's what they're doing. All right? Mbari says his concerns stem from the symbolism Netanyahu projects with the biblical metaphors he's used. And Mbari goes on to say, well, you know, he's playing with words. He can always say that he didn't mean it like that, but it might be that people who are hearing him, you know, soldiers on the ground field that are coming from Orthodox background, and there are many soldiers in the ground field that are coming from Orthodox background, when they hear him talk about remembering Amalek, it says for them something that may be understood differently, you know, by you and me. And here in America, we call that dog whistling. All right? That's what they call it whenever, for example, a Republican representative in Congress says something about like welfare queens. We know that he's actually talking about black people, right? Whether he says, you know, those black people or not, we know by that, you know, Reagan-esque terminology that that's what he's talking about. The same way that Bibi Netanyahu's soldiers, when they hear him say, wipe out all of Amalek, or rather, remember Amalek, that means wipe out all the Palestinians. It's code, all right? It's a code word, okay? So there might be that there will be soldiers and commanders or people on the ground that will understand the message that is coming from above, from the leadership of the state, as allowing them to do something similar to what Hamas has done to Israel, which is like jump, or rather go there and just kill everybody. That's what they did at that music festival. They dropped down and they killed whoever was in the region, right? Now, Netanyahu has quoted the Bible before as prime minister, but typically, in Bari says, Netanyahu is appealing to an international audience and citing the Jews' biblical right to the land. Quoting these particular passages marks a shift, in Bari says. And we'll get into all that, their right to the land and all that kind of crap. Ever since this war began, he has always quoted the Bible, and in his last statements were the strongest so far in the way he quoted the Bible. And I was intrigued, and I'm a little bit concerned about this, because typically when Hamas and Hezbollah have used the language of holy wars in the way in which they are, described their fight with Israel, Israel never responded in such language. Because, first of all, Israel is a secular state. You see that right there? Israel, the state of Israel, is a secular state. And all y'all Christians talking about, I stand with Israel, they don't even stand with Christ. So why are you trying to stand with people that don't stand with Christ? They openly reject the Messiah. So how can you be a Christian but then support this secular state? It don't make no sense. You just do it because people tell you to do it. Because Republicans tell you to do it because they like the military advantages that the state of Israel provides being there in the Middle East. All right? It's a secular state. It's not a religious state. It's not a fundamentalist state. But secondly, when you are talking in the language of holy wars, there can be no resolution that includes a compromise to that conflict. Right? So essentially what Ibari is saying is that the state of Israel is sinking down to the terrorist level. All right? They are trying to fight terrorism with terrorism, but 10 times more. All right? As you heard Chank say in that debate, at this point, they've killed well over 10 times as many people as Hamas killed at that music festival. All right? And he says, when people fight these holy wars, right, alleged holy wars, you are fighting in the name of God. And when you are fighting in the name of God, it is a total war until a total victory of the God of Israel over the God of the enemy. Even though it's the same God in that context, right? Because the Jewish people and the Arabs, neither one of those have a God. They don't have a real God. The real God of heaven and earth does not side with them. They are not his chosen. And we'll get into that here in a minute. All right? But it is always like it's a total and complete war with no way of compromising. It's very unusual, yeah. And Netanyahu always tried to distance himself from his Orthodox partners. He always tried to show himself as a person who is a secular Jew. All right? Notice how he worded that there. He always tried to show himself as a person who is a secular Jew. Although he has partners who are Orthodox, he's very different from them. Yeah, sure. He's always established people around him who were fundamentalist and Orthodox Jewish, right? But he himself, he's never been that way. Yeah, okay. Or he has a good mask. All right? And he always tried to emphasize it to the general audience. Now he's blurring those lines. And you have to understand, Netanyahu is a very calculated person. So if he's using it, it's probably, there's a good reason for that. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that he brought up AMALEK when talking about wiping out the Palestinians. All right? And the host asked, why do you think he's using it? And Bari said, his ratings are very low. He needs to reach back to his base and bring back his ratings. So now, that lets you know that, well, first of all, any politician, like, they just care about their ratings, they care about their voter base, they don't care about anything other than keeping their power. Netanyahu's the same way. He doesn't care about anything besides keeping his power. If declaring that he's secular and doesn't believe in a God would give him more voters, he would do that. Or keep his ratings up, whatever. But if appealing to his Orthodox Jewish base is going to get him more support, that's what he'll do. He doesn't care. He doesn't have any morals. He doesn't have any beliefs, really. Just that he wants to stay in power. All right? Bring back his ratings. Now the public polls that are conducted in Israel are terrible for Netanyahu. I'm a bit curious as to see where they are now. Not enough to look up. like where his approval ratings are now. But they can't be great because of this whole war. Everybody's torn on this war. Even the people within the state of Israel are torn on it. On how far the state of Israel is actually going in Gaza. Nobody is really comfortable with what they're doing. Except for evil people like the guy on the left that I never even showed anything he spoke in that debate. He was for everything that they was doing, 100%. All right. He would not even criticize how they killed more civilians than Hamas. He doesn't care. He just wants. And there's a lot over there in the state of Israel that's like that, who just want the Palestinians gone and just view them as like subhuman and they're all terrorists and we got to kill all of them. That's what they want. All right. That's why he referenced Amalek. We're about to get that soon. All right. The host says it's a really difficult place, right? A massacre in southern Israel? Yes. That left over 1,400 people killed, over 200 hostages in Gaza. The images coming out of Gaza with so many civilians killed, thousands among them children, right? That's even more now. I mean, when you talk about this war and this development as disturbing, what is it? You don't want to turn Israel, you don't want to turn Israel into a war with Islam. That Judaism against Islam. Because Israel, well, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about peace with Saudi Arabia. So just a few weeks ago, there was peace talks between the state of Israel and Saudi Arabia. Because the Saudis don't have any more morals either. They don't care about anything besides money either. And they're trying to like rebrand themselves and give themselves a new image across the world so that they can do more business across the world. We were talking about peace with Saudi Arabia. So if Judaism is in war with Islam, Israel won't be able to have peace with Saudi Arabia and won't be able to have peace with Egypt and Jordan and other states. So it's not strategically smart to invoke this metaphor that Judaism is at war with Islam. Israel is at war with a segment of the Palestinian people. It's called Hamas. This is how we need to treat it, in my opinion. Right? So Bari here is trying to give advice on how to reach peace. And strategically target Hamas and just, don't make this a war about Jewish people versus the Muslim people, because that will lead to World War III. And that's what they're trying to prevent. That's what they're trying to delay. But we know that all these Ishmaelites, whether they be Palestinians in Hamas or whether they be the Saudis, whether they be in Egypt or whether they be Hezbollah or you name it, they're all going to come to ISIS. They're all going to come together. All right, they're going to remember their nature. They're going to come together, and they're all going to be on the same side in World War III. All right, and Israel is going to be on the opposing side. All right. So from there, let's get into these a little bit. Let me just prove that these people are not chosen by God. Okay, let's see why they openly reject Christ. Let's see. Let's see how Christ feels about these people. Revelation 2. Revelation 2 and verse 9. It says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. Alright, so he's speaking, as it says in verse 8 here, the church in Smyrna. So he's speaking to his followers, the Israelites that were in Smyrna, right? The real Israelites. He said, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. So he said, look, in this world, you're poor. Right? You look at so-called blacks, Latinos, American Indians, and the poor people, what they call the global South, poor all over the world. Right? He said, but thou art rich because we have spiritual riches. The Father is making note of the things that we go through, and he has promised blessings for us if we keep his commandments. All right? And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. So out of the Palestinians and the state of Israel, who's the ones that say they are Jews and have established synagogues? That's a toss-up, right? That's a hard one. Of course, I'm being facetious. The people who call themselves Jews today are not the real Jews. They lie. They blaspheme, and they're really of the devil. All right? Let's keep going. Revelation 3 and 9 says the same thing. Says it a little differently, though. Verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Who's the one calling themselves Jews today? The state of Israel is one big culprit. Obviously, there's some in Beverly Hills, there's some in Hollywood, and there's also some in New York, plus all over the place, in Europe and the U.S. and, But the point is, they are not the Jews. So who are they? If they're not the Jews, then who are they? I do want to finish this out, though, because it says, Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. We'll get back to that briefly. But if they're not the Jews, then who are they? Right? So let's go to Genesis 36. We'll talk about who they are. Genesis 36, starting with verse 1. It says, Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Alright? Esau, meaning hairy, and Edom, meaning red. Alright? So who's the red and hairy people in the earth? So-called Europeans. Alright? Even down here in the South, we call them rednecks. Right? Because once the sun hits the skin of people who lack melanin, the blood comes to the surface. That's where the redness comes from. And the hairiness is quite obvious. They get they get hair like growing out the ears and all that kind of stuff. They get hairy with. They're the only babies to be like born hairy. You know what I mean? And maybe there's some Arabs there are, but the point is, red and hairy. That's obviously white people. That's obviously Caucasian people, right? So, and obviously, if you read in the prophecy as far as the characteristics of these people, we could get into that as well. Also, there's a historical route, but I just want to get to the verse. Where are we at here? Okay, we can start with verse 9 and we can read. All right. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites, and Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Ruel, the son of Bashemah, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz, right? So the grandsons of Esau were Taman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz, right? And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. Right, so there we first see the term Amalek, right? So here we have Amalek is actually a descendant of the Edomites. So who is white, or who is Caucasian rather, but doesn't like to associate themselves with the Edomites? That's what the Amalekites did. The Amalekites separated themselves from the Edomites very early on. All right? So let's think about that real quick. Who is European, but likes to say that they're not white? Who is European, but doesn't like to associate themselves with the rest of the Europeans and said that they're a different people? That's a real tough one. Maybe it's the people that moved from Europe to the Middle East. Maybe it was them. Maybe it's the people that established the state and called it Israel. Maybe it's them. Anyway, let's jump down to verse 15. Where it says, These were the dukes of the sons of Esau. Sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau, Duke Timon, Duke Omar, Duke Zepho, Duke Kenaz, Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. These are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Adah being a Canaanite. But the point is, you see, Amalek is right here tied together with the Edomites. God does not distinguish the two. At least he didn't until Deuteronomy 25. And obviously this goes back to Exodus 17, but Deuteronomy 25 is actually what Benjamin Netanyahu quoted. This is actually what he was quoting. This is Deuteronomy 25, I'm going to start with verse 17. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way. So remember Amalek. That's what he said, right? Remember Amalek. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when you were come forth out of Egypt. How he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not God. All right? So that's what Amalek did. When the real Israelites, when the 12 tribes came out of Africa, Amalek was there waiting for us. They were the first to attack us. Not only were they not friendly to us, they killed the weak. They killed the women and the children, the ones who were in the back, the ones who could not defend themselves. That's who they targeted. All right? So remember them. That's what God said. All right? Therefore, it shall be in the future, when the Lord thy God hath given thee rest from all thy enemies round about, in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it. So, first of all, we know this ain't talking about now. This ain't talking about now because we're still in the land of our captivity, right? We're not in the land which God gave us for an inheritance. We're not over there, all right? But when we get over there, in the kingdom, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, thou shalt not forget it. That is a commandment from God to wipe out the Amalekites. Obviously, don't do that now. Don't do nothing stupid now, because God said to wait. We gotta wait for our commander, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He will show us what to do. All right, and if that be smite Amalek over here, or whether that be show peace to whoever else over here, that's what we'll do. We got to wait for our commander. We can't go and take action now. We can't do these type of things now because God will not be with us. We got to wait for God to come to us, then he will show us what to do. And if I misinterpreted this, he will correct me. Whereas if I misinterpret it now and go around and start killing people, well then I will just die in my sin. But if I wait on the Lord, he will show me. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, this is what it's talking about. It's saying wipe out Amalek in the kingdom. That's what it's saying. Alright? So when we had the kingdom the first time, initially under the days of Saul, but then under the days of David and Solomon, of course. Solomon, the early days of Solomon, we were at the height of the kingdom of the Lord. Alright? But here in 1 Samuel 15, this is what they were representing Samuel, by the way. 1 Samuel 15, I'm going to start with 1. Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Alright, so that's the commandment that God, through Samuel, gave to Saul. Hey, go wipe out the Amalekites now. We see that Saul was not able to do that. Saul brought back the Amalekite king alive. He did not kill him, like what he said, or like what God told him to do. And they brought back all the sheep and the oxen and stuff. He did not obey the voice of the Lord right here. And they were just going into like a couple of Amalekite cities. God could not trust Saul to wipe out all the Amalekites utterly. And even in the days of Joab, when Joab put a hurt, in the days of David, one of his generals, one of his captains, in the days of David, one of his captains was named Joab, and Joab put a hurting on Edom and Amalek, but did not wipe them out utterly. All right, as we see here, as we see today, I should say. But anyway, let's go back to Revelation 3. Revelation 3 and verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. There's one thing that I almost forgot to scripture. Almost forgot. Let's go to Ezekiel. Because the same thing is said in the Old Testament about how Esau was going to go and take the land for themselves. He was going to go and take the land of Israel for themselves. All right, this is Ezekiel 36 and verse 5. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. All right, so we see there that we just read how Amalek was of Esau, right? And Idumea is a Greek and Roman word for Edom. Esau is Edom. It's the same thing. Amalek took the land of God into their possession. That's what they've done. All right? And God will judge them for it. But I wanted to get concerning Revelation 3 and 9. Let's get Isaiah 60. Isaiah chapter 60. And the word I want to start. Let's start with 10. Let's start with verse 10. This is how the kingdom is going to be built. All right? Right here on earth. In the land of Israel. All right? Except there won't be no wickedness over there no more. But anyway. And it'll be God's people in the land, not the ones who do lie. All right? So this is Isaiah 60, starting verse 10. And the sons of the strangers shall build up thy walls, and their king shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Excuse me. Got a tickle in the throat. But the point still remains that, as it says right here, the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls. The other nations will be made to build the kingdom. All right? As it says right here. And their king shall minister unto thee. When it says minister, it does not mean preach. Minister means serve. That's what minister means. Minister means serve. So when it says their kings shall minister unto thee, it means their kings will serve you. The leaders of these other nations, your old Bibi, NETANYAHU, what's another? Xi Jinping, right? Putin. They will have to serve you. All right? For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Excuse me. Verse 11. Therefore thy gate shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night. That men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. So when it says the forces of the Gentiles, it's going into their resources. Not just their armies, but their resources. All right? And their kings. All right? The leaders of these nations. Their presidents, prime ministers, whatever. All right? For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted, meaning destroyed. Whichever nation decides, oh, we're not going to Jerusalem to give our resources to Christ, they have to go. All right? Verse 13. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary. And I will make the place of my feet glorious. All right? We're going to use all the best resources to rebuild the temple and to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. All right? Verse 14. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee. And it's important that it says the sons of them that afflicted thee, because a lot of people don't know. Obviously, we know that your standard Europeans, as far as like your British, your Dutch, your French, your Spaniards, we know that they oppressed us, right? But also that they afflicted us, right? But a lot of people don't know is a lot of the slave ships were funded by Jewish men. A lot of the slave ships were funded by like the Cohens. I've seen posters for the Cohens. That's the only one I can recall. But the name Cohen on slave ship posters saying that they were funding the slave ships. I've definitely seen those before. All right. It says the sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee. And all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. So we see here that this is referring to the other nations. This ain't referring to Jews. This is referring to the heathen races, the Gentiles, right? It says they shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel, meaning you're really God's chosen. That's what that's making reference to right there. I can, let me go here, get out of that. So I just want to compare real quick, compare and contrast these two verses in Revelation 3 and 9 and Isaiah 60 and what was that, 14? Revelation 3 and 9. So let's not lose the thought. Let's not lose the thought from Isaiah 60, where it says, the sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. Those that hated you are going to have to bow down to you. All right? And they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. And the same thing in Revelation 3:9, where it says, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. You see that right there? So a lot of people, whenever you bring up these verses in Revelation about the people who say they are Jews and are not, people will be like, well, that's actually talking about people who were really Jews, but they weren't acting like it. It's not what it's talking about. All right? And we see that through how Isaiah 60 is saying the same thing as Revelation 3 here about how they will have to bow down before God's chosen. All right? And they will have to admit who the real chosen is. All right? That's what we see here in Revelation 3 and 9. So this is referring to people who are not Israelites claiming to be Jews. That's what this is talking about right here in Revelation 3 and 9. And this is why they reject Christ. This is one of the main reasons why they reject Christ. Because they know that Christ has denounced them, has prophesied against them. All right? That's why they reject Christ.